Okay, in this tutorial we're going to talk about moving parts and layers. We're talking about objects that have multiple parts in them that move in relation to each other and how you can do that relatively easily. What we're going to do is we're going to create a relatively simple object, a desk lamp, kind of like the one you see in the Pixar animations. And you'll see it's not quite that difficult to do that. And this could be done in the context of 3D printing. It could also be done for computer graphic purposes, animations, illustrations. The sky is the limit. Okay, here we are in Modeler, and we're going to start with the foundation for the object, which will be the table that it sits on. And so I'm going to go into Create tab, and I'm going to take a box, and I'm just going to go ahead and make that box. And I'll make it a little bit larger, even though in this case I don't think we really have to. So there's our box, and I'm going to center it. And just to be sure, I'm going to hit the N key, and I'm going to zero everything out. Oh, looks like I'm already off by a little bit. 0 and 0. And finally, we'll give that just a little bit of depth, even though we don't have to. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is make the base of the lamp. It'll be a desk lamp type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and set up another layer here. And I'm going to go into set up another layer, put the first layer in the background. And I'm going to do this as a disk. So let's say the base of the lamp will be over here someplace. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And I'm going to give it that much depth. It's not going to be a huge object. Now you'll notice that we got the segments there that are pretty visible. So what I want to do is I want to give those a little bit more structure. So I'm going to add some sides to that. And that's probably okay for now. Okay, so that's going to be the base of the lamp. And I want to give it a rounded edge to make it look a little bit smoother than it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, in this particular case, I'm just going to grab the top part. Make sure I'm in polygon mode. I'm going to grab the top surface there, and you see there it is, it's the ring. Then I'm going to go over to multiply, and I'm going to choose rounder, and I'm just going to bring that in a little bit. And actually that's pretty good. Now to fine tune it, I'm going to hit the N key. And if you look at the N key, the easiest way to work with this tool is to do with the presets. So let's, for example, say I choose 1. That's pretty substantial. So let's say I go less than that, go to 1/10. That's maybe not quite enough. So let's say I go to 0.05. And actually, that's probably okay. So if I then turn off rounder and release those points, that is what I have. And so that becomes the base of the lamp. So then we're going to establish the post that the rest of the lamp sits on. So let's say we put that temporarily on another layer and put this one in the background. In this particular case, we'll just go ahead and make that another disk. So zoom in on this a little bit so we can get the scale. And let's say I'm actually going to make that smaller than that. Just going to put that off into the corner a little bit. And let's say that that is what it looks like. And I may make that just a little bit smaller. It doesn't really have to be very big at all. Let's say that's enough. And I can go into my numeric tab and make sure that the radius is the same, which it is. And I'm just going to go ahead and cement that on there. I'm going to do that as a Boolean add. And there There it is. And so now let's go and so now let's go ahead and work on the first arm. We'll have two arms to this thing. And so we're going to do that as a box. So if we get in there and we look at this in the background, and we're going to create a box. It's not going to be a very big box. Let's say like that, and it's positioned on one side of that. I'm even going to put it into it a little bit. And if this were being done for 3D printing, I would have to put in a hinge and something that it would rotate on, but we're going to do that as an illusion here. So then I'm going to establish some height. And let's say I want this to come up about like that. That might be good, because there'll be another one too. So let's say we got that, and we've established it's got a certain amount of depth. In this particular case, I'm going to round that only a little bit, but we'll do that in the next step. So now, because we're going to have another cross piece, we need two of these. So I'm going to turn off box. I'm going to highlight those edges, and I'm going to basically do an edit copy and edit paste. And then I'm going to move that to the other side of the post. So if we look at this, we basically have the two cross pieces, and that will be good enough. And so then we're going to make the third piece. So that will be another layer, and we're going to go in on this, and I'm going to put that in between these. So I'm going to create a box, and I'm just going to basically create a very similar post, and I'm going to make sure that that's in between those. And in this particular case, if we were 3D printing this, we would have to make sure the tolerances were very specific so that the parts would actually be able to move. In this particular case, that's probably good enough. I'll put it up a little bit closer towards the top. And now that I've gotten that position properly, I can then extend it out. I'm going to take it out a little further. And so if we look at the concept as a whole, we can see that that's probably good enough for what we're doing. Let me just make it a little bit longer. Okay. And so in this case also, let's say we want to quickly add some rounder to that. Go to multiply, rounder, and I'm going to make that a whole lot less significant, so 0.01, let's say, and that should do nicely. And then I'm going to go back to the previous layer and do the same thing, and that would be 0.01 already established. So then if we look at what we got so far, if we highlight all the layers by holding down the shift key, we can see, oh, forgot this one here. We can see that we have the beginnings of this object. Okay, so at this point we can create the lampshade. And so what we want to do is we want to establish what will be a disc, and we'll put that right there like so. And we can fine tune it later on. So what we'll do here is we will highlight the one surface there, and we're going to do the bevel tool, So pick it out a little bit there, like so. Right click, left click. Right click, left click. Right click, left click. And we'll just sculpt that. And it doesn't really have to be more elaborate than that. So we'll take it in a little bit. We'll make this very, very thin. Right click, left click. And this time we're going up. Right click, left click. And finally we're there. And that's good enough for that. And we release that. So if we then look at this in context, all we got to do now is move this up a little bit. And in this particular case, I'm going to want to create the appearance of a hinge. So what I'll do is I'll go into the next layer and put these two in the background. So shift and select that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did with the base. I'm just going to go ahead and create a disk. I'm just going to put that right there, let's say. And it just has to be positioned in such a way that we can believably think that it's part of the object. And in this case, I like the positioning of that, but I'd like to move the other layer in a little bit. First of all, let's take care of some of this excess space here. It doesn't have to go into the lampshade itself, it just has to be part of that. So we'll go to the previous layer and put the other two in the background. And if I'm back here a little bit, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the entire lampshade over a little bit, and that will be fine. So then at this point, all I got to do is turn off that, and so then I've got the lampshade and the post, and I'm going to go ahead and add those. Do a Boolean add. So then I don't need the post anymore, and there it is. So if I look at what I've got so far, if I hold down shift and turn on all of the layers, I can now see that I have the desk lamp. Now looking at this, I'm going to say that the lampshade is a little bit smaller than I thought it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and extend that. Now we've already done the Boolean add, and we don't want to make the post any larger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the polygons that are not associated with that. So I'm going to select this layer only, and then basically put that in the background. And I'm going to select all the points and then deselect those. So the post itself is not selected. And then I'm just going to basically go to size, just make the whole thing a little bigger, and move it down maybe just a little bit more. And let's see how that looks. So if I put all the other layers in the background, maybe even a little bit more. And move this down like so. In fact, that may be too much. So let's size it back a little bit. Stay right about there. And position it where it needs to be. And then deselect it. Okay, so there is our simple lamp, and there's one other thing we need to add, and that is a light bulb. So let's isolate only that layer, and all I'm going to create here is a ball. So we'll make it like so. And we're going to have it so that it just sticks out just a little bit from the lamp itself. And that will be our light bulb. And if we look at all of these things together, there it is. Okay, and right now it doesn't look exactly natural, but we're going to do that in the next stage, in the next video. So what I'm going to do now, the last thing, is we'll just make sure that each of these surfaces have a name. So the base, I'm just going to go ahead and select this, go to surface, and that will be, we'll just call it table. And this, I'm going to highlight that. Oops, somehow I didn't get all of it. And I'm going to change surface. And these, I'm going to be a little bit lazy and just going to call it body. So all of the metal pieces will be the same. And the same thing with this. I'm just going to leave that body. And same thing with the cross pieces. And with the shade, actually what I'll do is I'll give that a separate one. What the heck? And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and save this object as desk lamp. And we'll put the surfaces and put the moving parts in relation to each other in the following video.